I love going on right after lunch. Everybody's all tired. My name's Drew, and I'm the CEO and founder of PostPilot, which is a direct mail platform for e-commerce. And I'll let Anton introduce himself in a sec. But why don't you introduce yourself now?
Okay, yeah. So my name is Anton. I'm leading growth at GetJoy Dog Food. We're produce fresh and frozen dog food, which is super healthy, full of probiotics, vitamins for dogs. I invite you to obviously check it out.
Awesome. So my background's, I previously ran brands. I started my first brand in 2000, and which is probably when most of you weren't even born, because I feel like I'm 20 years older than everybody in the room. Maybe that's not accurate. Is anyone here over 50? No, that is accurate. All right.
What about mentally?
DTC is a young person's game, you know? First brand in 2000. I've run 5 brands. Many of them were turnarounds, and I used direct mail in all of them. So I ended up building the platform that I wanted. My first brand was a furniture brand, and now, most recently, I own a hair color brand called Overtone, if you heard of Overtone. And I use direct mail, because I always knew I typically go into these brands and they'd have a big customer list, 5 million people on their list, and you look at the data and they're only emailing 10%. So I would just flip whatever's working and email into direct mail, just a really quick win. Always a hard way to do that, so I built PostPilot to kind of automate it. And I walked in today when Nima was on stage, and the first thing I heard was don't test any new channels right now. And so I feel like I should disagree with that, respectfully disagree, because I think there's a reason Amazon launched a catalog in Q4 last year. J.Crew just relaunched their catalog last week. I don't know if you read the article in the Wall Street Journal, but there's a reason they did it now and not in Q1. And it's because, 2 reasons, I think. Number one, direct mail drives your highest lifetime value customers. So at the streetwear brand I ran, we'd have kids who spent $5,000-$6,000 on streetwear a year, other kids who spent $25. The whales, as we call them, disproportionately driven through direct mail versus Meta and affiliate programs or something like that. The automotive brand, same thing. Customers spending $10,000 a year, buying 5-6 times a year from my brand, always came through the direct mail channel on prospecting. The dude who bought one spark plug and never came back was not a direct mail customer. So when you look at the data, number one reason you want to use it now is you're going to drive your highest lifetime value customers. Part of the reason I think J.Crew did go bankrupt was because the CFO looked at the cost of direct mail, cut it, and then unknowingly cut his best customers out of the company, right? And the number 2 reason is just we're going into holiday. It's direct mail's time to shine. It's also an election year. At Auto Anything, during that 1 week after Black Friday, we had Amazon, Walmart, and AutoZone all in our category bidding up keyword terms. We couldn't compete anymore on our ads. So it was a great time to lean into direct mail because there's less competition for your mail inbox. The price becomes competitive, it's the same price to send a catalog out the week after Black Friday as it is in the summer. It's never going to change. CFOs really like that. So those are the 2 big reasons I think now is the time, and we built our platform to be very easy to test. So you could sign up today, you could send 1 piece of mail if you wanted to. I'd recommend sending more to test, but there's no long-term contracts. We do all the work. A lot of the brands that work with us, and that's what we're going to get into with Anton, they typically just flip us, and they'll say, here's our Black Friday campaign. Can you flip it into direct mail? It's how we work with Jones Road Beauty or Dr. Squatch or Hexclad. They're just sending us whatever works on email, and we kind of put it into direct mail form. So we asked Anton to come up here and talk a little bit more about what it's like to be on the brand side. And maybe that's a good place to start, is kind of like what drove you to try direct mail in the first place?
Yeah, so previously I used to work at Dr. Dennis Gross Skincare, and we were kind of hitting a plateau with like our new customer acquisition, but also at the same time on the retention side, we were struggling with customers not being engaged on email or SMS. And honestly, like I used to live in Europe before, and so to me, direct mail was always like, you would get those catalogs that are like very bright, very colorful with like kind of, I don't know, like local businesses or whatever. I never really like thought it could be a great channel until I think like we met at one of these events here before, and we started chatting, and we were like, okay, well, we probably should try that. And so we actually decided to launch our first campaign last year, right before Black Friday campaigns, to re-engage with some of those lost customers, but also like acquire some of the new ones. And actually, like it was a great success because like ROI or ROAS, as you call it, on some of those campaigns was like over 20. You know, I really didn't expect that, and customers were coming back in troves, basically, that haven't interacted with us on email or SMS maybe in like a year or more, right? So like the guys, like I think their team helped us build some segments, and some of those segments were like more than 365 days, which was kind of unbelievable to, honestly, I didn't even think, like, I had zero expectations, right? And we did a trial with like maybe, I don't know, the first campaign was maybe like 5 or 10K, I think, that we sent, so it wasn't really like a big investment either.
Yeah, so this is like a primary use case is where brands almost always get a win is on retention. Right, so Anton mentioned customers who last bought from you a year ago, 2 years, 3, even 4 or 5 years ago, right? Like going into the holidays especially, it's a great time to touch them because it's almost like new customer acquisition. Like they've churned, they've defected from your brand, you're just bringing them back.
And again, like they get back into your network essentially, right? So they visit your website, you can retarget them. You can retarget them with your email, etc. You know, so they kind of, they get back into your nets. You know, you capture them again.
One interesting thing that you guys did on one of your campaigns, that I was looking at last night, was like you segmented out email people who were opening email.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
maybe like, how did you think about that as a marketer? Like, were you thinking these people are getting email, and these other people are not? I want them to get.
Well, I mean, obviously, with the help, I think, of one of your reps, for sure. But also, I mean, I think the main idea for us was to re-engage those people that are not interacting with our marketing anymore. And we had a lot of, actually, customers who were kind of high LTV customers that just kind of stopped buying, you know, and we didn't really know why they were doing that. That's a different conversation, of course. But that really helped, and obviously they came back before Black Friday, and we actually noticed when we were looking at like cohort analysis of those customers, a lot of those customers came back again to shop during like Black Friday and during holidays.
Yeah, I think one of the things that like direct mail today is not like your parents' direct mail or your parents or my direct mail, because I'm the age of your parents, but it's been like back in the day, you had to find a broker, you had to send them a CSV, you had to find your own printer and kind of like do this yourself. I think you should think of this like Klaviyo or a Shopify app, right? It plugs into your stack, pulls your customer data, and just makes it as easy as setting up a Facebook campaign.
I think that was a big part also that obviously like your platform integrates with Klaviyo and a bunch of other platforms, and we could pull all the data automatically into the platform without having to build out segments manually or anything like that.
That integration with Klaviyo is really interesting because a lot of brands do that. They say like, I have 5 million people in Klaviyo and 200,000 are opening my emails, right? So the vast majority of my Klaviyo customers are not really interacting with me. Why don't I just like hit them with the same messaging, but through another medium?
I mean, essentially, I think that's what actually prompted this whole kind of thing with direct mail, because I started doing we actually moved to Klaviyo from a different platform, And we started doing list cleaning, and we discovered that obviously so many people are unengaged that no one really thought about that before. And that's kind of how we ended up sending direct mail campaigns.
And also, you do a lot of cross-selling.
Yes, as well. So, for example, right after Black Friday and the holidays, we sent, I think it was in January maybe, another campaign to, so we have a had at Dr. Dennis Gross, a star product, which is an LED mask, which I don't know if any of you work in beauty probably know about it. And obviously we wanted to improve product discovery and kind of move customers into a different segment of our product as well. So we sent them, like all the customers who bought that mask during the holidays, which, I don't know, there were maybe like, I don't know, thousands basically. We sent them a card promoting our other products, with, potentially like, I think it was a discount or like 20% or something, right? Very easy. And obviously that segmentation was super easy as well because the platform integrates with Shopify directly, so you just kind of build it all out there. And then I think actually for me the best thing about this platform was that it was like a complete handoff. Like we didn't need to do anything. We just sent them like a bunch of pictures and our copy, and they just kind of did everything for us. I think that actually is the biggest USP of your platform, because other platforms were not willing to do something like that.
Retention, Anton touched on a couple of use cases like winning back old customers, cross-sells, upsells, post-purchase. What about acquisition? Have you ever tried acquisition?
So one of these little guys here, I think we're actually, I don't know if you want to show people, but I didn't really even think about it because the acquisition catalog, like they have a lot of options to send different type of cards and catalogs for acquisition. We didn't really think about that because our budget was pretty limited for the year for direct mail. But then they came up with this opportunity. Basically, it's a shared catalog with a few different brands that I think that was the, what was it? A morning makeover. Yeah. So kind of like a wellness type of catalog with a few different brands for homeware, like home goods and skincare, beauty, etc. And actually, it ended up performing really well for us, much better than I expected. We were just discussing this before. So the rep actually told us like, oh, don't expect a high ROI on that campaign. Like maybe it will be like the ROAS will be about like 0.5. And it ended up being like about 2.5 actually, So, and we ended up bringing pretty good, pretty high quality a new audience as well that ended up staying with us. Well, I mean, until I left recently, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I want to make this isn't just about PostPilot, but about direct mail in general. So, I mean, I think those are some interesting use cases on retention. What Anton's talking about now is like when you get into acquisition, whether you work with us or someone else, like the acquisition in direct mail is usually two ways. One is like a dedicated, when you send out your own piece, your own catalog, or we call these big things catalogs. And then there's a shared, which everybody's probably gotten those packs at home. And then we came up with a product that's very similar where it's 8, I'll send this around. It's like 8 brands share this. They're obviously not competitive brands. But what that does is it gets the cost to home down. So you're talking like this might be $5K for 100,000 homes. And what we do with those 8 brands is we'll do a lookalike off their data. So it's a highly relevant audience that's going to get it, right? You can do that. Like I looked at the packs, and the one thing I didn't like about the packs was no brand adjacency. I always like the beginning of magazines like Wallpaper or something where they do the editor's picks. So we hired the team that ran Domino magazine, if you're familiar with that, and they built this for us. And it's like got editorial, and it doesn't really look like, I'll hand it around. This is Anton's product here. But when 8 brands share that, it gets the cost to home down to, I don't know, it's like under 25 cents or something to really targeted households. And so that's like a cheaper way to play around with acquisition. Maybe that's like $5,000 for 100,000 homes, I think.
Yeah, and I think we ended up acquiring about maybe like 1,000 customers from that campaign actually. So the cost per acquisition was lower than, obviously on Meta or Google or anywhere else.
Yeah, so that's again why I think it's really relevant in going to the holidays and worth a look. We've been doing retention for years, and marketers get these insane ROIs, but they really don't care because they're just like, it's retention. Everybody wants new customer acquisition, so there is a way to do it with direct mail. There's also another direct mail kind of rule of thumb. When you're designing an acquisition campaign, it's often better to put more products in front of a customer than one. If it's retention, you might just want to send like a postcard with a little offer on it. But if you're trying to acquire brand new customers, there's more of a chance that the person who receives the shared mailer will convert on one of those or a full catalog. And often it's not that much more expensive to send a catalog than a postcard. Surprisingly, they get a bulk rate. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking acquisition through direct mail. So what about the GetJoy? What are you thinking in terms of where you would start?
It's still pretty fresh.
So GetJoy is his current business, pet food.
I'm still pretty fresh there, so obviously we have a lot of we need to cover our bases right now, but I am actually planning to introduce direct mail as part of our strategy as well. We have a lot of kind of local customers, like we are based out of Connecticut, so there are quite a lot of customers there, and there's quite a lot of opportunities, I think, doing more localized acquisition campaigns, which I think is possible, right? So I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I think that this was kind of one of our first ideas, and obviously again, like Black Friday, Cyber Monday is coming. We're a subscription type of brand, right? Type of company, so it's a little bit different. We're not planning to run like any crazy campaigns for Black Friday, but we do want to acquire new customers, and we do want to be able to retain them. So I think direct mail can really help us there.
Yeah, who here sells through like retail? I've seen that in my role at Overtone. We sell through Target and Ulta Beauty, and like a big goal is to drive, like we actually care more about driving people into Target or Ulta Beauty than we do about driving them to our Shopify. So we do a lot of, we call them shop drops, where our app will look at the customer data in Shopify, generate a lookalike, and then we layer geo-fencing on top, and we can say, like, only show me those people that are within 5 miles of a Target and buy at Target. And then we drop a campaign. The goal is to drive them to purchase at the Target. So that's like, I see a use case that's only been growing.
Yeah, so I think for next year, we're definitely planning to do that and potentially sending one of our first campaigns now for Black Friday too.
Cool. Well, I'd like to take any questions.
How does the attribution work? Like, is it just a QR code? Is there a
Here's another one.
Code? There is a QR code, but is that all there is?
Yeah, brands come in all the time and they're like, oh, to test attribution, I need to put a coupon code on it, right? It's like, we actually see maybe 25% of people who act off an offer redeem the coupon code. It's surprisingly low. And I know from a brand owner, like I could put a coupon code on my homepage and people still don't redeem it. And it's the same phenomenon. So what we do is they're holdout groups. It's sort of like the gold standard. It's like whatever my audience is, 5-time buyers who are 60 days average recency, or whatever the audience is, we carve out 10%, 20%, 80% get the campaign, 20% are held back. And both groups see my meta ads, both groups see my Super Bowl ads. Like the only thing that can attribute the lift to is the direct mail campaign. Because you can't do last touch, you can't, all that stuff really doesn't. People try to put QR codes on those things, but I would encourage brands not to get hung up on that. It's really like, you gotta look at the holdout group. And I wish all marketing tech did that. I wish Klaviyo had that built in. I wish Meta did. But I think the returns from all those would be surprisingly low if they did that, so that's why they don't. But for some reason, direct mail is held to a higher standard, so we had to build it in.
So it's going to be a follow-up to this question. So for email and SMS specifically, like you don't change paid ads as often, but for email and SMS, you're always testing out new creatives, you're always A/B testing new campaigns. Like I'm just trying to think of like how attribution would work when one of those new campaigns for that A/B group coincides with a direct mail post. Like, because I feel like sometimes it does convert, but then wouldn't you be losing like tracking on some of those customers who are getting converted through like physical mail they're getting, and yet they're responding to like an email or a new SMS that they've received, because those SMS and email platforms are going to take credit. They're going to say like it was because of us, it's because of our enhanced new creative, right? And they click through us, but the actual catalyst for the moving is physical mailer they received. Like, do you have like everybody like in this cohort received a good group within this date and then purchased within this? Like, I'm trying to think of like how your attribution window maps from theirs. What if they go click through one of the other channels that they're seeing the brand?
Yeah, I guess the way direct mail has done attribution in the past is it's called a matchback. It's like everybody who gets your campaign, and then what these households did by looking at who ordered, and you calculate a lift. So yeah, you can do that on a cohort level. If we do A/B testing, it's often by zip code or like odd zip codes get one, even zip codes get the other campaign, and you can calculate a lift off that. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering, like, say I get a mailer and I like it, and I throw it on my bed, and then later I'm getting an email from the same brand, and then I click through that email.
Yeah.
Technically, the email, the ESP provider is going to say like, well, or the marketing person at the brand is going to be like, oh, this person converted through email. But the reason I even went looking for that email was because of the direct piece of mail that I received. So I'm imagining like you must be losing. It must be performing better than you even see. Like, so how do you?
Maybe there's a lot. Yeah. Has anyone ever read How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp? He's like an Australian professor. He's got a book. It's like this thick. It's incredibly boring, but he argues pretty convincingly that like brand touch point, the salience of the brand is what increases lifetime value. In other words, like too many brands, I think, try to get too cute. You got really cute by saying like, okay, this is my I only want one message per customer. This guy's getting email. This woman over here is going to get direct mail, but I don't want to mix. But the data shows like if you stack same campaign, email, SMS, direct mail, whatever, your homepage, like the lifetime values, it works much better, enough to offset the cost of all those different campaigns.
Well, I mean,
I'm pointing at the woman who does a lot of like zillions of dollars of direct mail at Nestle.
It's very true. There's the dash class, but there's also ways to do it through a portal like this, where you can plug them into your journeys and your flows and really see that the growth and the attribution for sort of the holistic group overall, but then also the individual campaigns.
That's what I was going to say as well. So the first campaign I think we sent was a batch and blast campaign, but afterwards we integrated with Klaviyo where you essentially like trigger a webhook at the end of your flow. So you first send an email, then you send an SMS, and if people don't interact with that, you can send a card automatically.
Yeah, with our Klaviyo integration, it's like you can do something. I like to talk about discount ladders a lot. It's like too many people give away too many discounts, obviously. You only want to give the exact amount of discount to get somebody to incentivize behavior. So one way to do that is like, hey, 30 days after purchase, 10%, 60 days, 20%, 90 days, like ratchet up the discount with the customer's increasing propensity that she's going to defect, right? So a common Klaviyo campaign or SendLane or anything else might be like, they might build out a discount ladder. If the customer goes the full 90 days and hasn't taken any of that bait, then you trigger a postcard at the end, because usually those have better conversion rates. But if the customer takes any one of those discounts, they drop out of the sequence and you never have to email the card at the end. Sure.
I'm curious if you've had to mitigate conversations around sustainability with brands. I work in beauty as well, and I found that a lot of like beauty brands are really hyper aware of like that sustainability practices.
All the time. All the time. Jones Road Beauty. So one thing that makes us different, we have our own print facilities. We have East Coast, West Coast, UK, Australia, and Canada will be next year. But and we source our own paper. We do that in order to get the quality right. Like skin tones have to be right on both coasts. Like everybody else subcontracts, and then you just get variations in tones, increased time to home. We want like the shortest time to home. And to your point, like the paper supply, we can choose our paper. So we do like, not only do we for everything you purchase through us, it's all recycled paper. And that's what beauty brands care about a lot, recycled ink, and we plant trees, to offset the paper that we use. So that's weird. It is like a beauty the beauty category specifically is really into that. You had a question.
Yeah, and it might be very stupid. Once somebody purchases from us, we just have the ability to ship to that address? Is this all addresses that are made public? I mean, for emails, you have to have an opt-in, or SMS, you have to have an opt-in. Is their address just ours to use once we ship them a product?
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of the magic of direct mail is you don't need the opt-in
Right.
to emails. I mean, to mail someone, unlike email, right? So somebody buys from you, you've got their address. So that's the beauty. It's like, what's the richest audience for any of us? Previous buyers, and then you go into your Klaviyo, create 2 segments, create a segment of all my previous buyers, maybe it's 1 million. Okay, now all my previous buyers who have opened an email in the last 180 days. It's going to be 10% of your total. On average, I'm going across the 10,000 brands that I've seen, right? So you think about that as a marketer, like 90% of this very rich audience are not hearing from me in Klaviyo because they didn't opt in or they unsubscribed. But you still, with direct mail, you still can go and touch those customers.
How with the acquisition strategy, are you just banking on other companies that you're
Oh yeah, where do we get the audiences?
Yeah.
Yeah, so direct mail is 100 years old. There are data providers. You might have heard of like Epsilon, Wyland, Transamerican. Like they get their data from credit card companies, from cable companies. So these are all legal, and what we've done is aggregate these data sources and put it into our data product. So we've got every household in the US, and then we've stacked the different models on top of each other. So we can say, if you say like, I want to send this to people who have type 2 diabetes, we can do that. Or women in their where's Coterie? Coterie's doing a campaign with us. Did that guy leave? Women in their 3rd trimester is like a great audience if you have a product for babies, not for everybody. It's a great audience for pet. You'd never believe it. But it's great for if you have women in their 3rd trimester, new movers, like all that stuff is, I don't want to say publicly available because it costs a lot, but it's legal to get that from a data provider, or it's built into our app. And that's where we get the addresses.
And in all honesty, also, we actually had a few people reach out to us from like Paper Karma. You send like an automated email to our support. But I would say like we sent, I don't know how many cards we sent, like multiple, like dozens of thousands, right? But maybe 5 people did that or so. So it's like incredibly low. I think mostly people would go and throw away the card versus like unsubscribing from that.
Yeah, you as the brand, or we it's built in, have to honor an opt-out request. So if somebody takes the time to write in and say like, take me off your, postcard list, we got to do that. But no one ever. I mean, we might have like 100 total across thousands of brands in the history of PostPilot. Yeah, nobody does it.
Hi, I'm curious actually about any case studies or experience you've had on the retail side, because you touched upon it at the tail end before the Q&A portion, using
also showing how it could benefit our retail sales. So I'm curious if you have any like early results or how you've been able
Do you?
to target campaign worked.
No, not really.
It's interesting because every retailer, as you know, is different. Some are more, some you get I think Whole Foods will share store level sales data with the brands. Others are a black box. We see brands doing like, they know they're going to launch, and the launch is critical because if you do well in a Whole Foods or a Costco, they'll roll you out everywhere. So they sort of do that shop drop, and then they measure week over week to measure the lift. So I think what the brand is doing there, it's less about counting the conversions and more about like deploying ad budget more effectively. Like they're stacking it up against the Kroger circular, which just goes to everybody in a zip code.
Like customer relationship building, essentially.
Right.
Marketing. Okay.
We do work with companies like Aisle, where that do have a relationship, so they can redeem coupons at checkout, and that gets counted and attributed back. But not every retail. I don't think Aisle works with every retailer. I know they do with Costco and Walmart. Any other questions? I think so. Thanks.
Thank you.